I'd like to call to order the Katuitt Fire District Board of Fire Commissioners meeting July 11, 2023, 17:30. Present, Commissioner Conley, Commissioner Zace,
Commissioner Pisano.
Chief Brown.
Deputy Clark. All right, thank you. Anybody recording? If nobody's recording, yet we're recording. Public comment. Do we have any public letters that came in or any texts or anything?
We have no emails and there are no comments in the chat.
Excellent. Okay, gentlemen, Chief, gentlemen, did you have a chance to take a look at the minutes?
I did. I had one very itty bitty comment under appellants, specifically the section talking about portable charges. Lieutenant Mentor should be Lieutenant Mentor.
Okay, all right, I missed that. So I will make a correction to then formerly Lieutenant Amento. And
Excellent.
so
Rick, any other comments?
No, they seemed okay to me. I couldn't make out what Adam's concern was, though. Could you just repeat it?
Lieutenant Amento versus Lieutenant Mento. There was an A dropped. You track that? You got that one?
Yes. Okay, good. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right.
Just trying to prove the highest.
I know, it's very impressive. Do we have any motions based on that?
I move to accept the June 13th minutes with planned amendment.
Any second? Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Chief, we're good to go on that. Thank you all.
very good.
All righty, Chief, your report, please. You're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Chief's report for July 11th, 2023. The month of June had a total of 77 responses, 54 rescue and EMS, 8 service calls, 4 good intent, 11 false alarms, and 10% of our calls were overlapping, meaning at least 2 calls going on at the same time. So any questions under the responses?
One question was again what I mentioned about the report, the overlapping calls report. I find a challenge to understand. It would be wonderful if you guys could provide maybe an outcome other than, I think those are interesting facts. But specifically, okay, what did we do to handle this?
Okay. Yeah, we can work on that report and add some more granularity. So right now,
This month.
okay.
You're into it. So at the top, calls 348, 349. We were at Falmouth Station 5 for coverage for our fire assignment, and we did an additional call on Falmouth. So those 2 calls overlapped. We had an EMS call going on where a carbon monoxide alarm came in. We were able to handle that. The ambulance crew was able to clear up from the EMS call and handle that call. And we had an EMS call going on where we were unable to handle it with our resources and actually came in mutual aid. And then on this report, there's 2 calls that are overlapping, but they're incidentally the same call. One's a con run number, one's a run number from Katuitt. So that kind of cancels itself out. I think there was an error on the dispatcher. So that will summarize that one.
So it's not like it's just like
Yeah, no,
observation. I was reading it.
Understood.
And I was like, huh, it's hard to draw the line because each one is still with which. But then the outcome is more.
I agree. Yeah. Yeah, we can clean that up and get a better report.
Okay, any additional comments, questions on that one? All yours, Chief.
Okay, thank you. Under administration, the IM responding app has been implemented and is online. And the last report was, as we're preparing for that. So that's fully functional for our recall. So we're hoping that assists with some of our recall efforts. And as well as just improve visibility on who's coming in for us to make just certain decisions. Chief and DC, the chief and the deputy interviewed an intern candidate from Barnstable High School to intern with us in the coming school year. And firefighter Gardner did the first round of interviews. He participated in a panel with all of the interns from Barnstable school systems, as well as the other fire districts, and forwarded a name to Deputy Clark and I for further interview. And we're looking forward to having the intern in with next school year. Then we've been working closely with finance to transition between fiscal years, closing out FY23 and transitioning into FY24. Any questions under administration?
Yeah, Chief, what do we have the final status on how much money from stabilization will be needed?
So preliminarily, the budget is, we're still waiting for everything to clear. Preliminarily, overall, the budget is comes in under 2% under. The final numbers have not been totally tallied up by finance yet on how over we were in wages and salaries, which it's somewhere around the 0.24 to 0.3% area. And then there was also the transfer from the stabilization fund that's not showing up on the spreadsheets yet. And then maintenance, operations and maintenance, that was also a transfer from the stabilization fund that the Prudential Committee approved. That is also not showing up on our ledgers yet. So, but that it's generally in that range, and we're still kind of fine tuning what that, actually not fine tuning, but still waiting for all of the numbers to clear and show up on our spreadsheets to actually get an accurate number.
Right. Do we have a ready vehicle to alter the structure of how that budget is moved around within those four categories? And think I'm still sitting on the bylaws committee. I'm curious whether that is something our board should have me bring up to the bylaws committee, if that's what it'll take to facilitate more internal flexibility in those categories.
So I think Rich, 1 second. Chair recognizes Fran. Looks like we have a raised hand, Fran. You're on mute.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So actually, the solution is that instead of when we put the warrants together, is to just put the entire amount of whatever your budget is and not show it in separate categories for maintenance and for salaries. If it's just all shown as one lump sum, then the money can be moved around, and that's what we'll be doing from now forward. We won't have on the warrant, the specifics of the amount requested. We'll give that out separately to the public, but if it's just one single amount, then you can move the money around.
Excellent. That's a pretty simple way to get out of this cumbersome mechanism.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank
Fran.
you.
Yep.
Rick, you set? You good there?
Yep. Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay.
All right. Moving on to technology, the new data cabling is installed in the firehouse. That project is complete. That came in at $6,369.71. The process of switching the phones over to that was just initiated today. Do not have a timeline, but I suspect by the end, by the next commissioners meeting, the new phone system will will have transitioned over to that. Any other questions under technology?
No.
Under personnel, firefighter D completed his orientation and he's now assigned to shift work. Firefighter Lee received Fire Officer 1 and Fire Instructor 1 certifications, and we have mentioned in the past that they've been in these classes. However, the classes are complete and they have received those certifications. Same with Firefighter Gardner, received Fire Instructor 1 certification. And we've also mentioned that they were in that, he was in that class as well. DC Clark completed the Massachusetts Department of Fire Services Command Staff Orientation Program, and I believe that was in Stowe at the State Fire Academy. And then Captain Amento completed Fire Prevention Officer 2 and has that certificate. Any questions under personnel?
Yeah, that last item doesn't show on mine. Is that?
Yeah, I just penned that in today on my
okay.
notes because I missed it when I built the report. So I threw that in and pen and ink change. So,
Thank you.
okay. Apparatus and equipment, the shared ambulance is having the lettering done this week, as well as some PM work done on it. And so we're still on track to have that in service the end of this month. So, but certainly I would anticipate we'll be reporting at the next commissioners meeting that it is in service and online. So, any questions under apparatus and equipment?
Nope.
All right. Under facilities, last week I reported that we're starting to get quotes for the Plimo van. I received the one quote and it turns out Air Cleaning Specialist of New England is the sole source vendor for the Plimo vent system. So I put the quote in the sole source letter in your Dropbox for your review. And I would like approval. I'm requesting approval of the board to proceed with installing that Plimo vent system in the last bay. It's in 4 of the 5 bays currently. I don't know why it's not in the 5th bay downstairs. And I intend to use the fire station repairs budget that was a capital project out of FY20. There's $8,361.42 left in that. And I'd like to use 7,400 out of that to move forward with that project with the approval of the board.
Is it 7,400 exactly?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah,
Just to clarify, so we're taking 7,400 from one thing and what from the other?
So we have a,
let me hop in.
Okay.
So do you remember we voted for some station improvement funds last year or the year before? And those funds were put aside. Is $8,400 available in those funds for station improvement?
Oh, 84, I just didn't hear you.
yeah,
Yeah, some of it, and right now, this is gonna cost 7,400, so we're just taking out of that, which is already been approved.
Oh, wait, no, I didn't know this.
Mhm.
Yeah, I got you.
All right,
Valid question.
we have to approve the motion.
Yes, that's your motion. Rick, do you have any questions on that?
No, I don't have any questions on it. I think that warrant was actually 2 years ago. Doesn't matter that either way, but I'm glad we still have that funding available. I would move to accept the proposal by Air Cleaning Specialists and authorize the chief to direct necessary funds to cover this.
Second.
Any conversation? Okay, I think because there's finances involved here, somebody correct me, but I think we have to vote by name. So all those in favor?
Commissioner Pisano, aye.
Commissioner Zayes, aye.
Commissioner Conley, aye. Thank you, gentlemen. It's approved. You're set to go on that, chief.
Okay. And with that, that concludes, pending any questions, the chief's report for this evening.
Excellent. Okay. Old business, subcommittee reports. Adam, do you have anything?
Yeah. Civic is, the subcommittee for, I forget the title, dealing with the school has met, and the outcome of that is the Civic Association has volunteered a date, I think it's August 15th, for a district-wide meeting to discuss or to receive any input that people might have relative to what we might do with the building. So I believe the Civic Association and the Prudential Committee, as I went to the Prudential Committee recently, are going to be publicizing that and paying attention to
Great.
that day.
Thank you. Rick? Anything
Yeah.
to report?
No, there's been no activity by the bylaws committee.
Okay. And no, nothing to report on my end relative to needs assessment. All right, new business. Chief, Joint Base EMS mutual aid. I think you have something there?
Yep, for the awareness and of the for the awareness of the board and the public, the Joint Base Cape Cod is currently housing immigrant and homeless population over at some vacant areas on the base. There's approximately 53 families, I believe 177 total people living over there. Joint Base does not Joint Base Fire Department does not have an ambulance service. The Coast Guard has an ambulance out there, but it is essentially dedicated to providing EMS for uniform services. And Joint Base has now working with the area fire chiefs, and MEMA has a spare ambulance from Hyannis that will be over there and be staffed by mutually between Joint Base as well as surrounding fire departments, Bourne, Falmouth, Mashpee, Sandwich, and Katuitt on a rotating basis of providing personnel to assist with staffing that. The cost of that is 100% reimbursed by MEMA to the participating fire departments. In the absence of anything like this, it'll essentially go to mutual aid ambulances going on to Joint Base to handle any EMS related incidents that arise out of this process. So I just wanted to have visibility on that and let the board know and answer any questions that they may have, you may have.
And just want to follow up with that, Chief. They'll be on our run card now, correct?
That would be an available resource in the mutual aid system for, yes, it'll become an ambulance that's available for mutual aid.
The ambulance will be going there in the event that it comes down to that.
Yes, and if that ambulance isn't there or when that ambulance is tied up, mutual aid will still be going on to the base like they do currently. Yes, sir.
Chief, I had two questions.
Yep.
The base currently houses families of uniformed personnel. Does their existent EMS structure cover those families?
I don't know the answer to that. I believe they may, but I don't know the answer to that for certain. But what I do know is it's not an option for
Right.
the Coast Guard runs that ambulance, and them serving the civilian population is not an option.
Right. I do understand about that. I just didn't know where families of uniformed personnel got their services.
Yeah, I don't
on
know.
base. Okay. The second thing was, help me understand the reimbursement. Will it go back into the fire department's budget towards salary and wages to cover the overtime?
If Fran, did you say something?
I would,
You're on. Yeah, oh, you were. You're muted. You muted yourself, Frank.
I would assume that it would go to cover your expenses. I don't see why not. It
Okay,
should.
I just didn't want to be in one of those loops where it went into the general fund and then we end up chasing reimbursement from stabilization to cover our
Yeah.
Right, I
costs.
think, I'm gonna suggest that would be a conversation with Ray. I think it'll probably be handled. I will not assume, however, the same way your reimbursement will be handled,
Yes.
but I'll take that as to do to talk to Ray about that, to verify that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions on joint base? Okay, the other one that we have down here, I asked the chief to put on, and I asked the chief and deputy to do a little bit of research. I don't know if you gentlemen had a chance to take a look at the folder with regards to the incidents up there. So I will kind of cut through it for a second. I don't have that information if I'm ready to print it all out, but I talked to the chief about this because I was, and maybe still am concerned, but not as much, that the dangerousness that exists at the Santuit Newtown Road and 28 intersection. I think it was 2 months ago, chief, we had what, 2 rollovers up there, as part of one action, or thereabouts, maybe it was June, whatever it was. So I'd asked the chief and the deputy to take a look at that. Ultimately, you'll see as the numbers came back, and I want to have it on the agenda for today to see what the numbers had in case we thought we should take action. So based on the numbers, chief, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's been 18 calls that that the fire department responded to over the last 3 years.
Yes, with that, it's correct.
Just strictly that. It was 18 over how many, what period? Over 5 years, excuse me, 5 years. So
10%. of motor vehicle crashes.
okay, yes. And I thought frankly, the numbers were gonna be much higher. I thought the percentages of response was gonna be much higher. And that's why I wanted to have the conversation brought up here in case the numbers showed that we'd have the opportunity to agree as a board that we have to engage somebody else in the conversation. As I look at that numbers, and obviously anybody can disagree with me here, I didn't see those numbers being, as much as it's a concern of any safety issue, overwhelming, that would require the board to do anything. So with that being said, I'll open it up. That's what the premise was, and that's what you guys saw the data came back as.
So, good point. I looked at that and I said, okay, the frequency may not be high to be alarming in terms of the numbers. It's not like, oh, wow, it's happening every hour. But the, I would say the severity seemed high for each of the accidents. You know, the head-on crashes or, but one was pedestrian was struck. It does seem to me that there's still, even though it doesn't happen very often, when they do happen, they're kind of serious. That's
Not-
an observation.
I don't disagree at all.
When you were saying that, were you saying you mean inviting or going to the town and posing things like a traffic light? Is that the idea?
So I was, I'm not sure what I was thinking, frankly. You know, there's enough traffic lights around, but I didn't know if there was something else that, if the data came back, that was it, whether there's something else that, shy of that or that, right? That could have been requested or discussed. Right, so that's where my brain was at with it, because I was just concerned about it. The severity is absolutely correct. But that's what the idea was. Okay.
Kevin,
Rick?
about 3 years ago, maybe 4, but I thought it was about 3 years ago, the state released its survey of concerned intersections throughout the state. And on the Cape, the stretch of 28 from 130 all the way back through to Santuit was noted as a risk area, looking at those 2 intersections combined, and they got deferred because all the funding was directed to the Willow Street project because it serves the hospital. And so as I recall the article then, and I didn't go hunting to pull it back up out of the archives, but we were that stretch they were aware of, but action on it was going to be deferred at least 5 or more years out on when it would come up in the priority list. And that assumes that nothing else supersedes it in the meantime.
Okay,
I
Thank
will-
you
I will
to-
offer that
I just wanted to, Fran, did you have, Fran, did you have a comment there? Was at the intersection looking at improvements last spring. Okay, got it.
Got it?
and
That was
Dave-
it, that they were down last spring, I believe, looking at it again.
They were last spring, okay. And that is a state highway versus a town highway, right?
Correct.
The Starkey / funny remarks.
I did too.
So what I was every year, the Civic Association has a meeting with the town officials. And we call it concerns of Katuitt. And I know that this is on there every year. And to Rick's point, and when I say this, issues about traffic, things like speed bumps and or stop signs and or crosswalks and or just the general speed, or all the things that people have, voices concerns, but this is one of them as well, the traffic on specifically Main and 28 and Santuit Newtown and 28. Those are always brought up, and Rick's right, it is, yes, we understand, but don't hold your breath. So I think we should keep voicing concerns, but I would defer to the chief and the deputy chief as to whether they think it's a growing concern from the safety and risk standpoint, or just whatever. If you have any thoughts.
Chief, any thoughts?
Certainly as somebody that lives nearby there, I see a lot of near misses. The data is here, and compared to a signalized intersection at Putnam, which we also ran, we ran incident data with PD for 2 years. We have data sets. We have the fire department data set, and then we have PD's data set. So PD obviously goes to more incidents than we do with motor vehicles that are minor and do not require EMS. So a comparative representation. Putnam in 28 had 9 incidents during the same period as Santuit Newtown having 23. So is it an issue? I'd say the data would indicate that it is. It's probably worthwhile just to continue to have those conversations with the town and the state. And is it is it the highest priority of ours? It is probably not, but is it something that the data speaks for itself? I would say, I think the data supports keeping that on those agendas.
So with that, let me just ask, Debbie, any other thoughts there? Okay, with that, my thought process of bringing it up was so that the board could decide if we wanted to officially as a board draft a letter or, a position go towards the state and say, we as a Katuah Fire Department, Katuah Fire District are concerned about this. We would ask that you take action on it, pick whatever the right terminology is. So that's where I was going initially. We're still at that point right now. If we think there is something that we should do to pass on to them our concern officially as a fire district, we can absolutely do that. Adam, thoughts on that?
One thought I would have is, I don't know if we have the data to support this in any way, but I would like to know what the fire department does in terms of responding to avoid those intersections, yet still, do you just go to the end of, into Newtown and flash lights to get across? And is that what you tend to do? Do that?
Yes. Normal practice.
Okay. Does it in any way, does the fact that there isn't a light there, that are either of those intersections, in any way compromise service either in that corridor or north of that corridor?
I think there's potential for it. I think, we know the intersection and the challenges of people getting through that intersection normally. And then, we put a fire truck in the middle of it with the siren and the lights on. I think it creates the potential. I know that there have been in my time here 2 accidents at that intersection related to a fire truck going through the intersection. Yeah, I think there's potential to slow us down. And I think there's potential to slow us down getting north of 28. And I think there's potential for us to inadvertently cause an accident at that intersection.
Chief, any follow on
Without traffic preemption devices, if we were ever to signalize that intersection, it wouldn't change anything. So I don't know if there's traffic preemption devices down at Putnam, but we don't have anything that adjusts it. So unless we went with traffic preemption as well, a signal could, it would make minimal difference on our responses, because if the light's red, we still have to stop and deal with green light traffic coming across and vice versa. So if we were to signalize the intersection, we'd also have to invest in traffic preemption to make any significant difference in that arena. So it's just.
Gotcha. Thank you. Rick, anything else here?
Well, I did have a question for Adam about the prior subcommittee report that I forgot to raise.
Hold on. So let's hold on for just 1 second, if you would.
Yeah,
sir.
sure.
So with that, do we have a desire, and I'll take it whichever way we want to go, to send some type of a letter, notification, concern to the state, to the town? Probably be the state, maybe the copy to the town. Or do we want to let the status quo go, let the civic association, whoever's doing it, do their thing, and we'll see how it plays out? Rick, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that the Civic Association bringing it up regularly is probably as good a prod as anything, since we don't have any specific remediation target.
Right, okay, good with that, Adam?
Yeah, I agree.
We're good there.
I mean, it's a world. This, not that, but it's like, no.
Okay, Rick, you wanted to swing back around to the subcommittee report?
Just in terms of the school status, did they finally pull, does your committee know if they finally pulled the tank?
I haven't gone by to see, at the committee meeting, and I went by with the chief. I still think it's ahead of us. I think that project is ahead. I don't think it's been done yet, but on my way home tonight, I'll go past the school and see if it's, if there's a hole.
Where was the tank?
It's at the back of the school, basically, towards the tennis courts.
Right, so I'm there every day, that's what I'm wondering. There's no holes in the field.
They haven't done it yet.
This is FYI.
They haven't done it yet.
And so we have not achieved final transfer,
I don't think so.
right? Because the tank was one of the.
It's a gating factor for that.
Yeah.
It's the
Thank
tank and the line to the wall. They're supposed to excavate and remove the line from the tank to the building as well.
Yeah.
So the tank is 25 well, 40 feet from the building. Something like that, so there's a line.
Oh, it could be underneath the grass, there's nothing cut there,
It's under the macadam, I think.
right, but I haven't seen any indication, I'm there, whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
I've seen it.
you would see it, you would see the whole thing,
Okay,
or you'd see disturbing.
great, okay. All right, we good with that, Rick?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
I assume, Mr. Chairman, that you've been busy working on presentation for that August joint meeting. Do you expect to have something to share with us ahead of that at our next regular committee meeting?
I will sure we'll have something ready for you for that August meeting to see.
Great.
Okay. All right, anything else? Any other business? Okay. I have one request. Dave, are you joining us next month?
Yes, I am.
Okay, do me a favor. That yellow thing is like a hand being held up. I keep getting ready to call you.
All right.
Is he having hand up? What? No, what is that? Okay. Anyways, all goodness. Just kidding. All right. With that being said, do we have any motions?
Move to adjourn.
We adjourn.
Second, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
I think it's not on the record, but thank you for pulling it. That was very illuminating. Yeah, I mean, I take your point, but how many lights can you actually have in a half?
Well, see, here's, I wouldn't mind pushing. I wouldn't mind. We should record